All right, we are in. All right, we are in here in the studio, and we actually had a guest this morning, but we had to reschedule that.
Yep.
So guess what, everybody? For this episode, they are stuck with us.
They are stuck, and I'm kind of happy they're stuck.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I use "stuck" in a very positive sense.
Absolutely. So what's going on,
man? Just trying to stay busy, man. It's somebody I was talking to a client on the phone yesterday. And we were trying to put together a small order. And they said, man, we're just trying to survive. We had a huge band season, and we know everything's going to kick in fourth quarter. And there's just a little bit of dip. And they said it happens every year. And I was like, you're right. It does happen every year. So I wonder what everybody's doing and going through right now on this little bit of lull that seems to maybe be there.
Yeah, you're right. It does happen every year. It seems like there's about 2 weeks, 2-week pattern that kind of just is dead.
Yeah.
It's just like you feel like they're on vacation. You feel like they're gone. You don't know what's going on.
People do go on vacation this time of year. So we have a bunch of times in the past.
I'm going on vacation in about a month.
Yeah, you are.
Maybe 3 weeks. I don't know. Something like that.
But and that's the thing is it's like everybody does. They hit the ground running for band season. People go back to school, and I don't know if it's just because everybody thinks it's going to continue into fourth quarter.
No, there's a lull.
Yeah, there's a little bit of lull.
Yeah.
I know we press real hard for people to try to do layaways, to do layaway programs, or to do events that'll get people involved and. That's it. Trying to stay busy.
Well, it's interesting. It's kind of an odd thing, but it's a great time to buy. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking just about to us, but it's great to go to the manufacturers because they have product.
Yeah.
Because in a couple months, they're going to run out of product. They're not going to be the availability that there is today. So if you have the money, if you have the time, buy product now because it's going to run out. So
I mean, my goodness, we preach all the time trying to get ready for the fall.
Yeah.
And we've said that a million times. It's just kind of like you don't buy guitars for the fourth quarter in the fourth quarter.
No,
you got to get ready at a time. And
it always cracks me up when people call it November 1st saying, I need strap packs.
I need guitars.
Yeah, and you're like, how does it feel to want?
Yeah, I know, because we have them on sale right now.
Yep.
And I get it. We've done a couple episodes in the past talking about that, so I guess maybe this is just a small encouragement for people to be proactive because you gotta make of it what you can, even if even in a little bit of a lull. So,
and it's also a great time, and we've talked about this. Is take a look at the inventory on your wall that's just sitting there. It's a great time to run sales, great time to blow stuff out, clean out your inventory, create a little bit of cash flow, and get ready for the big buying season.
Yeah, anything with a birthday.
Oh,
anything with a birthday needs to go.
Well, if anything has a birthday, you better get rid of it.
Do you think anybody still does that anymore?
Absolutely. All across America.
All across America.
Yeah.
We got
Maybe
guitars,
there's a business there where you can be hired to come in and help them clean out their inventory.
Maybe there is. I don't know. I guess in the pawn industry, they kind of have somebody like that can help, I don't know.
Yeah, the pawn industry. Well, the pawn industry, and we've talked about it before as well, is they're very, very smart with their inventory.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to do podcasts with a couple more guys from the pawn industry and talk about inventory.
We do need to do that.
Yeah.
We do need to do that. It'd be interesting to what degree music stores have software or they're very extremely proactive about their inventory management.
Yeah. Which a couple other things that we've talked about, and maybe we can get some feedback while we're rambling before we jump into the topic that we're going to talk about, is we've talked about having someone from HR, accountant, and inventory management. I think those are 3 really good things that we should get on the books sometime within a quarter or so and get going. I think it would be a great thing to do.
Yeah, and this is actually a great time for anybody who's listening to the show. If you have any suggestions on, we call it office management or something to that degree that would be a good suggestion. We'll take it. So we'd love to do some interviews with some people in those.
I think it would be good. I've talked to a couple dealers, and they were real excited about it. I think it's a good topic. All right, let's talk about what we want to talk about, man.
Well, what do you want to talk about?
Well, this is going to be a kind of a unique topic just because I've got some things running through my head. We've talked about it here with some of the staff, and we've just kind of tossed it around, and that's kind of the change in the industry from the manufacturer level, technology, small dealers, boutique. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I just think we need to just open up a big conversation about it.
Because we're starting to see smaller guys look a lot bigger.
Yeah, and let's set this up. And so I could be 100% wrong, but I don't think I am. I'll start by saying that.
But I'm not.
I don't think I am, though. Let's back up and look at, say 10 years ago. We're just starting with that timeline. A lot of the manufacturers was looking to all the box stores. I mean, they were looking to all the big outlets and saying, hey, this is the wave of the future. Brick and mortar stores were afraid because the box stores were going to take over, and we know who all those people are. And so everybody kind of focused on that. The manufacturers put all their eggs in their basket, or most of them, and that's where they concentrated themselves on. And then what they forget to realize is the same message that they have been preaching for generations was actually becoming true, and that was customer service, telling a story, taking care of people. There's all these different elements that we talk about all the time that they were not doing on that level. So the manufacturer was not paying attention to the small dealers anymore. They were just going to the box stores. They were going, hey, 70, and I'm making up numbers, 70% of our business go to the box stores and the other 30 go to these guys. So we don't care as much about you. We're going to act like we do, but truthfully we don't. And I think that's probably partly true. And then all of a sudden you get these little dealers that are there, and then time goes by, technology goes by, and then all of a sudden you get these guys that are entrepreneurs, and you got technology right there, and then they go, I'm going to make a pedal and I'm going to design it because I hear this, and then I'm going to go to Instagram and Facebook and start my own website. Now you can create your own website, where 20 years ago it was hard to do. It was impossible from what I know. But today it's not. And then you got these amp builders, and then you got these guitar builders. I mean, look at the brands out there right now of guitars that are phenomenal guitars that is competing with these high-end manufacturers. And they're sitting there going, in my opinion, wow, we used to sell X amount of units of these high-end fill-in-the-blank guitars, but now we're not. Where's it going? Well, then they look at these boutique guys, and they're moving guitars that are $2,000, $2,400, $3,000, and people are buying into them, and then they go, oh, wow, we're sleeping because we're putting all of our eggs in this big basket, and we're forgetting about all these people here. And now there's a whole subculture out there that has been told a story, because you get these small manufacturers that are guitar builders, and they go, hey, how do I get the message out? Well, you got Instagram at your fingertips. We talk a lot about, all this stuff and the technology and videos, do all this and stuff. Well, now if you look at all these little brands, and now they're not so little. Yeah. And then now they're selling thousands of units, and the manufacturers have got to be going, oh my goodness. Yeah. In this category, we used to sell X amount, and now it's dipping, and these guys over here are selling it, and they're telling a story. And there's a whole subculture out there, I don't know what the percentage is, that now would go buy a Sir guitar. They would go buy Mario Martin's guitar. Fano's taken on. The list goes on and on and on and on and on, to where some of the 2-3 big guys they've got to be sitting there going, oh, wow, are we sleeping giants? Yeah. Are we not paying attention to the people that are through social media? Are we not paying attention? Because we are so focused on the box stores that we've absolutely forgot about a percentage of the demographics of people out there. And now look what's going on. Yeah. Look at how many pedal builders there are. To the point to where, it's overwhelming. There's a ton. To where a lot of them now have their own little distributor. So there's a distributor that actually distributes that type of product, because they don't want to go to the big guys anymore.
Lost.
Because they're going to get lost, and because the reps don't know anything about it, because they're dated. they're dinosaurs in comparison.
Yeah.
And there's a shift in the market. We've talked about it for the last year and a half. Get involved in things. Use technology. You're a small store, but you could present yourself big. So anyways, take over some.
Man,
I'm rambling.
That was a good intro.
Well,
well, and we could go back to maybe we could start from maybe some of the ideas that caused this huge change. And we actually had Rhett Shaw on earlier this year that talked about creating, creating YouTube videos and using it as a platform. But we could start at the idea that when you say technology, man, cameras have become affordable. You got to think about how expensive good cameras were 15, 20 years ago when a lot of this internet, the platforms on the internet were starting to come out. They weren't necessarily obtainable because you had companies that you had to pay to come and create that content. So we have cameras are affordable. We have cameras on phones that people now can shoot quality video.
Great quality, yes.
But the other thing too is now the ability to edit video and create content has become easier than ever. So you have small companies and we'll just reflect back on Scott. He has really taken those platforms. He's created great content at a minimal cost, and it's allowed him to catapult. So
let's talk about Scott for a minute, because I agree with you. To me, it fascinates me that we have a young guy. I don't even know how old he is, but he's young.
Yeah,
a young guy that now is a guitar string maker. Where 20 years ago you wouldn't touch that. Because you're always told, well, you can't compete with this brand. You can't compete with this brand, and there's only a couple people that make guitar strings, and we can't tap into that world. And so we were just stuck with what we have. And because of technology, because of the change, there's a young man who's come out and says, not only do I want to do this, but I want to do it better.
Yeah.
And that is a big part of what the change is, because no longer are we stuck with whatever a big manufacturer forces us to have. And I'm not trying to be negative on them guys, because I love them all. But there is a lot of really, really good quality product out there because there's room for it. Yeah. There's room for a company like Stringjoy to come out and say, hey, I want to measure the gauges and make sure they're better.
Yeah.
And to me, that fascinates me. And now his company is growing and growing and growing, which lets me believe that there's room. Yeah. No longer do we just sit there and go, he's successful because he's the cheapest.
Yeah, he's actually not.
He's not the cheapest, but I'm not a guitar player. But it sounds like he's one of the best.
Yeah, and I keep bringing up the idea, and we talked about it with him. But, sitting on Instagram, he has a video, and he put it on YouTube, I believe, as well. But, he's sitting there having a conversation about wound thirds.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there going, my gosh, I can't believe the reaction. But the thing is technology, like you've said, has come along to where he can create quality content on a budget to talk about wound thirds that then gets sent out there to guitar players that people go, well, none of these other companies are talking about wound thirds in this way, and now it attracts him. So he's harnessing technology. Yes. So it's obviously we're the music retail show, and we want to translate that into music store owners that we're still in a place where you have to somehow harness this technology to help you get your message out, and you're able to create good quality content at the same time.
Absolutely. Hopefully when we're done, and again, we're kind of rambling, and we're kind of, I don't want to say we're not prepared, we're just kind of airing all this out. Yeah. So hopefully when we're done with this, there's a lot of music stores, a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are excited going, I'm that little guy who doesn't have to be little and say, well, I can't do anything because I can't compete with the big guys. I mean, if we were to sit here and name names, there is a ton of manufacturers popping up that are doing great in the social media platforms.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, there's a ton. And it's got to be affecting the market. Yeah. And I see a whole subculture of people in there that are going, I'm not going to order from these jobbers that I used to. I'm going to go to this boutique distributor because there's certain sounds and pedals that I want, and they know about it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to just chase a pedal that a big manufacturer makes because they're just kicking out product. Yeah. These guys have actually sought after quality. Mm-hmm. They have a story to tell. You know, you're more intimate with them, where these big box stores, they've lost touch. Yeah. And maybe they need to stop and go, wow, maybe we need a platform on social media. Maybe we need to dive deeper into the trenches and get to these people, because we're losing a lot of people. Yeah. And it's going out there to a lot of people that, like I said, I don't know what the percentage is, but there's a subculture of people out there that are buying and spending a lot of money on product that I don't know how that the big guys are even tracking it.
Yeah, I mean that is actually a great question. I mean, I realize a lot of stuff is happening over the years. People are probably just throwing out things out there to see what sticks. You know, but I will say, you know, one of the coolest stories I've heard lately is the fact that you have a brand that's working with an online dealer that only sells online, you know, but they've created a little bit of a place at there where they sell online at. They don't have a music store, but they've created a small little area where they can show some product, and you have brands that are going, hey, we realize you only sell online, but you have a great online presence. You've sold a lot. You've proven yourself. You know what? Hey, if we will let you become a dealer, do you mind showing some of our products?
Having a showroom.
At your place. So if anybody in your town puts in a lead or asks a question, we can just send them to you. We realize you're not a music store, but you could be a central hub that we could send people to. And they're like, yeah, I would love to do that. So it's almost like, because of technology and social media and selling on platforms like, you know, Reverb and eBay and all those that we've now created opportunities for people to be almost kind of like this new version of music stores that's delivering customer service in a new way that never happened before.
Yes. The scary part is, I guess it's a scary part because I love brick and mortar stores. I love going to a destination.
Sure. Yes.
So the scary part of that is because there's not enough places doing it. Mm-hmm. So that leads me to believe that there is room for these people to do it.
Yeah.
And so again, you know, we talk about it all the time. The brick and mortars, we need to examine where we're at in our town. You know, why can't we be that place? Why do we have to have an online a seller open up a showroom? Why do we have to have that? You know,
that's a good question, because one side is you're saying, man, is this hurting good brick and mortar stores? You know, but also at the same time, we're looking at the other side, going, well, hey, here's a person filling a niche through technology.
Yeah.
So it's a give and take or love-hate relationship, but it's obviously has to be talked about.
Absolutely. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm happy for both because it opens up different styles. Maybe it's a generational thing to where there is a percentage of people that say, man, I don't enjoy going to normal brick and mortar stores, but with the technology, I love this kind of selling or buying, and maybe that's what it's gravitating to is you buy it online, or if you want to go to a showroom, you're one-on-one. You sit there and you talk with the guy if you want to buy it, and then you leave. You don't have that whole store experience. Maybe that's how technology is changing as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, who would have ever thought 20 years ago that online guitar lessons would work?
Yeah.
I mean, I never would have. 20 years ago, if you said that, I'd been like, that's weird. I would never do that.
Yeah.
But yet we have multiple companies popping up doing things like that, harnessing new technology to reach people in a way that's never been done before. So,
yeah.
But, so music stores, they've got to realize that they've got the tools at their fingertips to do this. We've also talked before, actually we had Rhett on to talk specifically about, hey, you can't be afraid. You got to get in front of the camera. You got to talk about what you're doing. You've got to do that. So, there is an aspect that I think that, hey, you know what? It's like this separation that's happening. The people who are willing to get in front of the camera are gaining share. And I think a lot of these really cool boutique companies, whether it's pedals, guitars, amps, drums, things like that, they're getting in front of the camera. They're talking about their product. They're creating a buzz about what they're doing. And then, so you've got to say the opposite. The people who aren't getting in front of the camera, are they losing out?
Yeah, they are.
They are.
I mean, I have to say they are. It kind of, all of this stuff is new, and in 3 years, 5 years, we'll probably have a better picture of it.
Yeah.
But as you're talking about it, I'm looking at. And I'm looking at segments of the industry that might even be behind the curve. It seems like guitar players are on the front end right now, and this is just the way it feels. I don't see as many drum people doing this. It seems like right now in the boutique world and on the social media, you've got a ton of great guitar companies out there, great pedal companies, which pedals are huge right now. Mm-hmm. And then you've got some great boutique amp builders who've been around for probably maybe even the longest. There's always been a lot of boutique amp builders. But on the drum side, it seems like they're kind of missing out.
Yeah.
So I wonder, I know a lot of it is age, but then some of it is in style of the instrument. Mm-hmm. Bass players have always been on the cutting edge on boutique and not necessarily playing.
Yeah, that's true.
A main thing.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of cool boutique basses that have been around for years and years and years. Yeah. But drums, it's like a roller coaster. It goes up and down. And so I guess there's room for every demographic out there, every style of music. And it goes to, younger generation, older generation, brick and mortar, online. There's a huge platform out there that is, people are waiting going, what's next? What should we do?
Yeah, absolutely. And so as you're talking, I'm sitting there trying to think, it's like, video is a huge platform too, but those videos and that content has to be put out there somewhere. So, the thing that's really helped catapult a lot of these companies is then obviously jumping into social media.
Yes.
So, we've talked a little bit about social media before in the past, but we've obviously got to revisit this and talk about this. You've got Facebook, you've got YouTube, you've got Instagram, you've got Twitter. Those are kind of the big ones that a lot of them are obviously they're using. Now, a lot of other things have spawned off from that. You have Snapchat and some of these 10-second video companies that I can't even remember the names of them right now. But
if you were 12,
if you were 12, you'd know exactly what they are. But but these are, so these have turned into legitimate tools for business.
Yes.
And I realize a lot of people go, it's almost kind of like. How serious do people actually take these tools? Like years and years ago, you might think about, a TV ad or a magazine ad or a radio ad or something, and if you just kind of dabbled and do a whole lot, maybe your business suffered. We're seeing that exact picture right now. If you're not using these tools for business in a proper way, it's going to get hard. Well,
what's funny, as you're saying that, I'm thinking of who our guest was going to be today.
Yeah.
Because of social media, that person is in the position that they're in because of social media.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it was just because of normal avenues, they wouldn't even have been our guest.
Yeah.
So it's so important that person is so popular through social media. That everybody needs to be involved in it, in my opinion.
Now, and you mentioned before, which I think is a big deal that ties all of this together, is obviously telling a story.
Yes.
So you're either good at telling a story or you're not, or or actually go back. You were either telling a story or you're not.
Yes.
And so this is where people are going to live or die.
Well, I mean, and to go back, and I'm pointing over here as if Scott from String Joy is sitting right here.
He's right here.
But just going back to he told a story.
Yeah.
He got me fired up about guitar strings. I don't give a crap about guitar strings. Mm-hmm. Let's be clear about that. But I was intrigued by it. I actually enjoyed sitting there having a conversation about strings.
Yeah.
Because of how excited he was.
Yeah.
He was telling a story. He was actually doing his job. I know he owns the company, so he's got a little bit of stake in it. But how many people out there own brick and mortar stores that they're not telling a story? They're not doing anything. They're like, I am not going to do social media. I am not going to do this. I am not going to do that. I'm going to sit here and wait for people to walk in the door.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like SEO and website and all that kind of stuff. It's just kind of like if you dive into it, you realize it's very crucial that you have to do things properly. And you
now
have
explain
to do
what you're talking about.
Well, search engine optimization. I mean, it's just a world. I mean, Google seems like they're changing their algorithms about once every 4 days.
Yeah.
So it's very involved, but also at the same time, it's just kind of like you have to figure these things out and you have to use them in a way. You have to approach your website in a way that Google wants to try to rank it.
Yes.
If you don't,
Yes.
you will sit on the 10th page forever, your entire life. Social media is the same way. I mean, we realize the algorithms for Instagram, they like long video. They like certain things. They like things that are starting to trend. So you have to use things that way. If you just take a picture of a drum set in your store and go, well, see, I'm using social media and it's really not doing anything. It's, you have to realize there's a right way, there's a wrong way. There's people telling stories, there's people who aren't telling stories. And I think the whole reason we're even saying this is you have to kind of evaluate where technology is, how people are using it, and are you being successful or are you not? Because this is kind of a do or die time right now for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about how we need to do it.
Okay.
Talk about, what would you do if you were a store owner? And then I'll go through some things. What would I do?
Well, obviously I think the first thing I think any music store would have to do is think locally, how could they fit in? Like what story could they tell? That would make them stand out. I think a lot of times people want to gravitate. Hey, if you played guitar for a living in a couple bands, that might be an avenue that you start telling a story of. Hey, why would you be an expert, or why you'd be good, or why you've been in the industry for years, to try to find a niche. Now, but then that's obviously has to translate out into something a little bit different. I think on a global scale. But I think that. One of the most important things a music store should do is try to intertwine what they're selling with what their story is. So, somebody can buy this ABC amp from 16 different places, but the question is how do you ask yourself, what's going to make me stand out that somebody's going to at least consider buying it from me? Now, locally they might do that, but online they've got to do that. And so that's where people have to be creative and put time and effort and thought into Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and things like that, or their website, and how they all interlinked back together too as well. That's a huge deal of using technology in a proper way. If you have a website, and I'm meaning if you have a website and your social media is not pointing to your website, or vice versa, to where people interconnect, because, we have a lot of things called, like backlinks, where people are referring back to your website. Those are all things that need to be considered to be able to get your story out. But to go back a little bit, you've got to find a story that you've got to tell that's going to make you stand out. I think whether you're a local store or an online dealer, you have to start there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I've had several businesses where they talk about. It used to be where they talked about the generational thing.
Yeah.
My grandfather started the store, my dad, and now I have the store, and that was their story.
Yeah.
I don't know. A couple years ago, I heard a guy who was very, very much into. Advertising and what it does. And he was saying that today people don't care.
It doesn't matter if you've been around for 87 years.
Yeah, people don't care about that. And so it really kind of got me to thinking, it was like, that's kind of a bummer, but maybe there's something more.
Yeah.
And then, each store owner needs to have his story. There's some guys that you said, played in local bands and they were real popular, and maybe they grew out of that and settled down and whatever. But then there was something else. They have to have a different type of story. Maybe their story is that I'm real involved in the community of band. We had a guy in here who owned the music stop, and he was heavily into band.
Yeah.
And so his store was very, very, very successful because a big part of his business was because of band.
Yeah.
That was his story. Everybody came in. He was talking about them. They would bring him dinner. They'd bring him snacks. They'd bring him whatever, because he was so into the community that he would go to hundreds of schools is what they service, that he was just part of that generation after generation after generation, to where that's his story. That's how he's known. He can't go to the mall without seeing somebody that he's fixed their clarinet or picked up their saxophone or helped them out of a jam during band season.
That's a great story to tell.
And man, I mean, you've got to think that he in his community is an icon because he's the guy. There's bigger outlets, there's mail order, there's all these pressure from everybody else, but they go to him. Because he's the guy. Yeah. We had Josh Touchton in here that is something that resonated with me is he said, everybody needs a guy. When it comes to sales. Yeah. So you've got to be that guy if you're a salesman in a store. You've got to be that guy to where everybody wants to come to you for whatever reason, because you have a story. You have a reason to be there, and you've got a story to tell. So
yeah, and you think about it. Even if we jump outside the music industry, you look at Coke or Pepsi, the commercials, if you see any commercials, which I don't see too many commercials these days, except for when I'm watching football. But they all they're doing is they're trying to tell a story of the person holding the drink. They're walking down the street, they help somebody across the street, and that person says thank you and hands them a Coke, and now they drink that Coke because they just shared an experience with another person.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like all they're trying to do is say, hey, we're just telling a story of what happened between two different people, and oh yeah, by the way, here's a Coke. So it's realistically, man, music stores online, whether you're online or brick and mortar, man, you have to start with a story, man. You can't just open up shop and say, hey, here we are, we've got some stuff, come in and buy it. Because at the end of the day, I think they've already got that. Yeah. I don't know if I should say this. They already have that in Guitar Center. You can just walk in there and go buy something. They're not telling a story necessarily, but you can be different and create and sell a lot. There's a ton of great things to sell out there that you can, provide because you believe in the products and you can sell them and you can tell a story at the same time.
I think a big, we're talking about telling a story and we're kind of getting off on that, but telling a story would also, in my opinion, be in the product that you sell. Because if you think about it, a lot of people stock things because it might be the cheapest. So they have that in there. And with that, their story is that's the cheapest in the story.
Yeah.
And then some people will go, okay, maybe I want the best. And then if you think about it, there are shops that absolutely crush it, and they're not the cheapest at all.
Yeah.
But the gear that they have and the product they have, some of the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, getting back to Scott, I wish we need to bring Scott back, and he's sitting here in spirit.
He's sitting here in spirit.
But he was talking about, I just want to make the best.
Yeah.
And then at that point, price was irrelevant.
Yeah.
He even admitted, I'm a little bit more than everybody else. But while he was talking about it, price was not an issue.
Yeah.
His story was quality.
Yeah.
And I've known several places that have guitars and they stock the best guitars. They may not be the most expensive. We had Rick from Vintage, and he was talking about the quality of those guitars. And he was talking about details and how they pour in the technology to the point where we had people email and said, "Hey, are you guys going to start stocking those guitars?"
Yeah, absolutely. We've heard a lot of positive
because
feedback.
he did talk about price, but he was talking about quality so much. He was telling a story.
Yeah.
Rick was doing a great job telling a story.
Yeah.
And it made a lot of people want to investigate that brand.
Yeah. Well, he even talked about in that podcast about how Vintage's story made him want to come work for him.
Yes.
And I thought that was telling within itself. But you're right. You know, they are telling a story about how they can provide. It's not about, it just so happens that they have great prices, but that's not the focus is, hey, look what we put into the guitars.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, you love this? Guess what? It's an affordable price. Or the story of even, he was saying that one of the stores hangs the guitars in the expensive room without a price tag on it. And when people pull down to play it, then they find out what the price
shocked.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're shocked. But they're selling the guitar for what it is, not because it's necessarily the cheapest.
So a lot of times the stories evolve. You know, we're saying, hey, you need a story, but a lot of times it could be your background, your experience. It could be the product itself. You don't even have to be a former famous guitar player in a band to have a story.
Yeah.
You have a store full of product that if you're picking the right product for your store, you have a story.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of times where people say, hey, you got A, B, and C guitar cable, and then you end up selling the most expensive one. Why? Because you could say, hey, the way these are made, the product that they, or the materials that they use, you are getting a superior cable, and it's only 20% more.
Yeah.
And then at that point, people go, well, I don't want to order it on Amazon. I want to get it right here with you right now.
Yeah.
So that's part of a story as well.
Yeah, which, by the way, I still need to find out a cable that is a one-directional cable. That when Andrew was talking about that from EMD, I still don't. I still don't believe that actually exists, but I guess it does. And I'll need to find one of those out. We need to do some kind of, I don't know, special edition on something like that.
Yeah,
it's crazy,
I don't know.
I
I don't think there is such a cable.
I don't think there is. I think
he was
pulling my
spoofing
chain.
on. Yeah, I think he was spoofing on you.
So, but anyways, you know, story. We can talk about that all day long, but I still believe that the whole reason this even came up is because more smaller boutique, whether you're a manufacturer, you know, a builder or a store, has the ability to get that great story.
There's market share out. Yeah, there's market share out there.
Market share on.
Yeah, and that the whole point of it is to encourage people that there is a lot of market share out there.
Yeah.
And are we going after it?
Yeah.
You know, there's. Like I said, there is hundreds and hundreds of examples out there, and if I was a store owner right now, I would seriously sit there and go, I'm tired of you guys talking about this. I'm going to pay attention, and I'm going to actually implement it, but I'm going to have either not, if I can't do it myself, I'm going to have somebody within my store that is going to do video on a regular basis, that's going to do whatever it takes to get my name out there, because I'm in a town right now, and I need people coming in the door.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, you know, we do talk about a global market all the time. And in fact, before we even started this, Ian was even showing some examples of people that do, you know, social media very, very well. And they actually appear to be doing extremely well. But you know what? I wanted to ask and, you know, get your opinion on this. What goes up must come down. And when economies go up, economies must come down.
I was thinking of something else. I'm glad we're not going to talk about.
Well, you know, yeah, that happens. Yeah. Anyways, so. So what goes up must come down. I'll start right there. But we have a lot of companies out there that are doing a great job, and we have a lot of companies that are trying really hard. But I think it's also will technology, you know, be there to help and save these companies and those who are implementing it right when we have a downturn? Because you know what happens in a downturn? A downturn starts to flush the businesses out that aren't strong. Those who are strong gain market share, and then you have a readjustment of everything that goes on, and then whoever survives out the other side gets to gain a little bit, and then you have new businesses that come along that, you know, some went out. So how is technology going to play a big part in this? Because, like we said, what goes up must come down.
Man, I don't know. I don't know. I would have to say that you know, during the recession before, less and less people walked into places to make purchases.
You think they were online?
Yeah. So with that being said, I think it did give people a lot of opportunity to sit at home because they were like, well, I can't afford to buy XYZ. So they did. They got online. They looked through their phone. They did whatever. And then that's where social media and other avenues started opening up more.
Yeah.
So it makes me think that maybe it would hurt the brick and mortar stores even more if we had another recession, because people are slowly changing on to accepting buying online. Because, I mean, how many years ago did you hear people nonstop, I would never buy a guitar online?
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, but today it's very, very acceptable.
Yeah.
And so through the course of change, would it not be more acceptable for people to just say, hey, I'm going to go a different avenue because I'm not going to go shopping because I don't have the money to go shop, but they actually do go shopping and they're not thinking about it. They just do it in another way, and that's doing it online.
Yeah. And, you know, and the big question is as a business, are you doing what it takes to build a good foundation with technology to reach more people to tell your story so that you can, in essence, sustain a change in the market?
Well, a lot of people think that online means somebody else. It could mean them.
Yeah.
Meaning that they should be the next person. You know, there's enough room out there. There's enough space out there to be the next person. We talked about it earlier that Reverb just sold for, what was it, $375 million? Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was something like that.
And they'd been in business like 6 or 7 years. That blows me away. You know why? Because there was another platform that wasn't doing things right in their mind and was not catering to the customer.
Yeah.
So they started something.
Yeah.
And they did a better job. And even today, it is growing. It'll continue to grow because they actually listened to the people out there that were sellers, that were buyers, that were just lookers. You know, they had content on there. You don't have to go to Reverb to buy something. It's fun to look at it, but you can go and you can read articles. You can see about favorite bands. There's different things going on there. So eBay is the counterpart. eBay's going, oh crap, we're sitting here and we are very, very vocal saying we don't really care as much about the dealer as the buyer.
I know.
And the dealers are going, well, fine, I'll go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And another platform was made.
It grows by leaps and bounds.
And it grows, and it's actually a place where people want to be because the buyers and the sellers are both being taken care of.
Yeah.
Both people are going, I love this platform.
Yeah.
And so that lets me believe that there's a ton of room out there. There's a ton of room for another business to pop up. You may be a brick and mortar only today, but maybe in 3 years you have a huge online presence.
Yeah.
You could do it. There's room.
It was actually impressive at NAMM this past summer when we sat down in for the dinner on the Friday night.
Yeah.
When they talked about some of the winners of, well, I guess it was the NAMM Awards. They were talking about the different winners, and they were talking about some of these stores that have these online presence. And I'll tell you what, man, they were impressive. I mean, impressive. And they didn't do it overnight.
Yeah.
They started at one point in time. They built on it. They hired the right people. They built on it some more. And it was just, I have to admit, I was sitting there going, dang it, man. Some of these businesses, whether it was in Australia or it was in Europe or wherever, they're impressive. They're impressive. And guess what? They're not giant box store music stores.
No.
They're not. So I think that should be encouragement to everybody. You know what? You might be sitting there doing so much revenue a year. You're not going to go from there to doing $7 million a year. But guess what? Man, you might, if you can increase by 10 to 15% every year over 3 to 5 years, you've got a legitimate business that you're
Well,
growing
I think it comes down to the really, really cold, hard facts that some people will do it and some people won't.
Yeah.
And those people that won't, and they put their head in the sand, your days are numbered.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest.
No, let's be honest. That's what we're talking about.
Your days are numbered. And sitting and griping and complaining about the industry, how it used to be, is no longer acceptable. Mm-mm. I don't want to hear it. You know, now I'll probably make people mad. I don't want to hear it because, you know, there is a ton of ways for you to make a change.
Yeah.
Now the change is either hire people in there that can do it or think about where you want to retire.
Yeah, and I will say this, and you know, as long as making people mad, I don't know how many.
Do you have any family members you need to make mad? Let's go ahead and make everybody mad.
No, I don't know anybody. I don't have anybody. Everybody who's mad at me has already been mad at me.
Well.
So, but I don't know how many music store owners that I've talked to over the last year that they talk about struggling. They talk about figuring out what they're going to do. But guess what? They don't show up to NAMM. They don't go through more education. They don't get involved. They're not trying to learn new things. They don't hire better staff. Or I guess maybe that's an unfair assessment on my point because I'm not there. But my goodness, how many times have we talked about NAMM and we've talked with Cosby about the education that they have, that they're pouring literally just probably hundreds of thousands of dollars into trying to educate music store owners to be better at what they do, how to tell their story better, how to implement the different platforms, and how to use technology to get that out there. But yet you have people that go, oh, I don't know, I'm not going to go this year. I just don't feel like I get anything out of it. And that's just a dead sign right there that, man, you're in trouble. I think you're in trouble. You have to. The world that we're living in is changing so fast, and the way technology is being used and it's being harnessed by a lot of people that are being successful. If you are not trying to figure that out in a way, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think that we have to agree that we can't help these people. Mm-hmm. That we just need to concentrate on people that want to.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what I'm realizing right now is there's a lot of people that just they don't want to.
Yeah.
They don't have the energy to do it, and we need to just concentrate on the people that do.
Yeah. And we might as well just say that, get this out in the open, I think, too, Ian, that if you're not listening to the Music Retail Show on a regular basis, you're in trouble.
Brought to you by
the Music Retail Show.
No, I'm just kidding. That might be edited out.
I don't know. Well, I don't know. It was good. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. Anyways, but that's it. You know, to be honest with you, I feel like we've said our piece on this, unless you can think of something different. But
no, I just want to stress the fact that there's a lot of room out there for a lot of good growth, a lot of good change, because I think it's a time where the manufacturers, like I said, we've talked about, have just kind of shifted their eyes onto big box stores. Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of people out there that are going, hey, there's a demographic of people out there that they want. They want a small company that cares. Not that they don't care about it, but, you know, a small company that wants to have a story. They want to build good quality product. Yeah. They want to have a wonderful relationship with you. They want to see your store grow. They want to invest in your store. There's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of companies like that right now, and I think there's only going to be more. So if you don't, instead of chasing the dream of having one of the big 1, 2, or 3 brands out there, go look at Vintage. Go look at some of these other manufacturers, because there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anybody, everybody listen to this. Just see this as encouragement. We're trying to encourage people that.
Although in the last 10 minutes we weren't very encouraging.
Well, I guess maybe we're in a roundabout way trying to kick people in the rear that people who are not implementing it need to.
Yeah.
And you need to wake up. You just need to wake up. And there's a lot of people that are. Man, we've got some clients that we're working with do an excellent job. And you know what they do? They tell their story. They're on the social media platforms. They do a great job. They put out quality content. And they're selling a lot of stuff.
Yes,
they're selling a lot, whether it's amps, guitars, pedals, or whatever, and they're doing a great job. And which, in my opinion, means that people can learn to trust you through these platforms.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's a lot of people out there that they don't understand when we talk about other people. We don't get into the numbers, but when people find out that there are other people and the numbers that they're doing, they're going, there's no way they could do that. Mm-hmm. But they are, because they are not limited by just being in a town. They're like, hey, I have a whole world to sell for. I mean, there are people in every country that wants to buy my guitars. I just got to connect with them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm done.
Yeah, it was a good way to end it, I think we can. We can rest knowing that we have encouraged the entire world.
All right.
Anyway, so yeah. Hey, go to themusicretailshow.com. Man, check out some of the other episodes. We talk a lot about this stuff, reference some of the past episodes. We have episodes on selling online, on finances, on creating YouTube videos. Go to the website, watch those episodes online, or just listen to them in your car, something like that, because this is education. Hey, you know what? We might not have all the answers, but hopefully we're at least stirring up the questions in
Provoking
your own mind to have the right conversations amongst you at your own store. But go there, check it out, and of course, if you have any feedback, go themusicretailshow@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Hate mail invited.
That's right. All right. Thanks a lot.
All right.
The Music Retail Show.